Good morning. Today's lesson is 6.5, add and subtract fractions. Our essential question, how can you use a common denominator to add and subtract fractions with unlike denominators? Connect. You can use what you've learned about common denominators to add or subtract fractions with unlike denominators. Yesterday we talked a lot about common denominators, and today we're going to be using that information to help us add and subtract. Let's unlock the problem. Malia brought shell beads and glass beads to weave in designs in her basket. She bought 1/4 pound of shell beads and 3/8 pound of glass beads. How many pounds of beads did she buy? So first, it asks us to underline the question that you need to answer. So we're going to code just like we do on our test. How many pounds of beads did she buy? Well, there's my question right there, so I'm going to underline it. Next, I'm asked to draw a circle around the information that I'm going to use. Well, I need to know the 1/4 pound of shell beads, and I need to know the 3/8 pounds of glass beads. So I'm going to draw a circle around each of those items because they're what I'm going to need in the problem. So we're going to add 1/4 plus 3/8, and we're going to write our answer in the simplest form. First, we need to find a common denominator by multiplying the denominators. So this is one way. We can multiply the 4 times the 8, and we know 4 times 8 is 32, right? So in order to make my numbers be 32 on the bottom, so I'm going to write 32 on the bottom of both of these, I need to multiply it by a number that's going to get me 32. So on the bottom here, I'm going to multiply this one by 8, right? Because 4 times 8 equals 32. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So 8 times 1 is 8. Now over here, in order to make this 8 become 32, I need to multiply it by 4. So we're going to multiply 4 over 4. So 3 times 4 is 12, and 8 times 4 is 32. Now that I have 32 on the bottom, I'm okay to add, right? Now I can actually add it. 8 plus 12 is 20 over 32. Now, simplest form, I need to find a number because obviously 20 and 32, I know 2 can go in them. What other number can go? Well, let's try 2. 2 goes into 20 10 times, and 2 goes into 32 16 times. I could keep going because I know 2 can go into those numbers again, or I could have found a higher number in the beginning. But let's try 2 again. 2 goes into 10 5 times, and 2 goes into 16 8 times. So my simplest form is going to be 5/8. Now, that's one way to do the problem. So let's do another way. Find the least common denominator. Now, if you find the least common denominator, you're not going to have to do all of this simplifying because it's already going to be in the most simple form. So first I need to find out what the least common denominator is. So 4 and 8. Well, I know 4 can go into 8, so if I use 8 as my bottom number for both of these, I'm not going to have to do as much reducing. So the least common denominator between 4 and 8 is 8. Okay, and if that's the case, I don't have to do anything to the bottom number because 8's already on the bottom, so I'm going to move that straight over. Now 1/4 on the other hand, I am going to have to do something. I need to make the bottom number be 8. In order to do that, what times 4 equals 8? 2, right? Well, what I do on the bottom, I do on the top. 1 times 2 is 2, and 4 times 2 is 8. Now I can add them. So now I have 2 plus 3, which is 5, and I have 5/8 because 8 is the bottom number that I agreed upon for my least common denominator. The great thing is I don't have to reduce because it's already done for me. So finding the least common denominator is going to be your fastest way to getting the final answer. So my final answer is Malia bought 5/8 pound of beads. Example, when subtracting two fractions with unlike denominators, we're going to follow the same steps that you follow when adding two fractions. However, instead of adding the fractions, we're going to subtract. So let's subtract. We have 9/10 minus 2/5. So we're going to make sure that we need to write our answer in simplest form. So I have 9/10 and I have 2/5. First of all, I need to make sure that the bottom numbers are the same. And if I use the least common denominator, then I'm not going to have to do a whole lot of reducing. So I know that 5 goes into 10. So if I make 10 be my bottom number, I shouldn't have to reduce. And in doing that, I won't have to mess with the top number. I'll only have to change the bottom. So in order to make 2/5 be have 10 on the bottom, I'm going to have to multiply it by 5 over 5. By 2 over 2. So 5 times 2 is 10, and 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, and then I have my 9 tenths. And I'm going to subtract 9 from 4 is 5, and then I have my tenths. Now this one's a pretty easy reduction because I know 5 goes into 10, right? So it's going to end up being 1/2. So that's going to be my simplest form. So let's describe the problem first. It says describe the steps that I took to solve the problem. Well, what I did was first I found a common denominator, and then I wrote an equivalent fraction with the like numbers, and then I subtracted them and made them simplified, right? Pretty easy to do. Next, it asks to explain how you know whether your answer is reasonable. Well, I know my answer is reasonable because you can estimate the difference. 9 tenths and 2/5, 1 and 1/2 is equal to 1/2, and since the difference is equal to the estimate 1/2, then the answer is reasonable. All right, let's do some sample problems. I've got 5 12s and 1/3. Well, I know 3 can go into 12, so if I make 12 be my bottom number for both sides, then it should be pretty easy to do. So I'm going to keep 5 12s, but I'm going to change 1/3. In order to make the 3 be a 12 on the bottom, I have to multiply it by 4. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So 4 times 1 is 4, and 3 times 4 is 12. So my equivalent fraction is going to be 4 twelfths. 5 plus 4 is 9. So I have 9 twelfths. Well, I know that 3 can go into both 9 and 12, so I am going to have to reduce. 3 goes into 9 3 times, and 3 goes into 12 4 times. So my answer is going to be 3/4, my final simplified answer. So let's look at the next one, 5 and 7. Well, there's really not a whole lot that they can go into. So if I multiply them together, then I should be able to get a common number on the bottom. So 7 times 5 is 35. So if I make 35 be my bottom number, that means this side's going to have to be multiplied by 7 over 7, and this side by 5 over 5, right? So 7 times 2 is 14, and 5 times 3 is 15. So now when I add them together, I get 19 35s, okay, and that is in simplest form. All right, let's do a couple more. 1/6 and 3/4. Well, 6 and 4, a common number for them would be 12, because I know 6 goes into 12, and I also know 4 goes into 12. So if I make the bottom number on both of these be 12, in order to do that, I'm going to have to multiply the 6 by 2 over 2, because 2 times 6 is 12, right? So that means 2 times 1 is 2, and that's what's going to go on the top. Over here, I have 4. In order to make that be 12, I have to multiply 4 times 3. So whatever I do to the top, I do the bottom. So I have 3 times 4, which is 12, and then I have 3 times 3, which is 9. So now I have 9 plus 2, which is 11 over 12, and there's my answer. All right, I need you to make sure that you're watching the signs, though, because see how these were all pluses? You'll notice these next ones are minuses, right? They're subtracting. So you need to make sure that you are watching the sign, because you don't want to get messed up on that part of it. So let's look at 3/4 minus 1/8. Well, I know that 4 can go into 8, so if I keep 8 as my bottom number, I should be okay, and I won't have to do too many different things. So let's keep the 1/8, but in order to make 3/4 be 8 on the bottom, I'm going to have to multiply it by 2 over 2. 2 times 3 is 6 eighths, right? And we've got a minus, and 6 minus 1 is 5, so I end up with 5 eighths. All right, I'm going to ask that you do the rest on your own. If you need any help, I'll be on the carpet. You can also work with a partner. Good luck.